Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that being the nice girl might be the very reason you feel overlooked, unheard, and exhausted? That behind every polite smile and silent nod, you're slowly erasing your own voice, convincing the world, and worse yourself, that you don't matter as much as everyone else. Think back. How many times have you said yes when every fiber of you screamed no? We laugh about it. Oh, I'm just being nice. But deep down, isn't it terrifying how much of your power you've handed over in the name of approval? This isn't about becoming rude or heartless. It's about reclaiming your spine before the weight of everyone's expectations crushes it. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that starts with a girl just like you, standing on the edge of a decision that would change her life, and it's the very decision you'll face by the end of this talk. But before we get there, let me ask, when did being liked become more important than being respected? Being nice isn't the same as being respected. We grow up being told to be kind, to smile, to say yes, to avoid conflict, to make others comfortable, even at the cost of our own discomfort. For many women, this idea is deeply rooted, like a script handed to us in childhood that says, be nice and the world will love you. Be agreeable and things will work out. Be pleasant and everything will fall into place. But here's the truth, no one tells you niceness doesn't automatically earn you respect. In fact, more often than not, it can quietly strip it away. Niceness is about making others feel good. Respect is about being seen, heard, and valued. The two are not interchangeable. You can be the nicest person in the room, always saying yes, never raising your voice, never pushing back, and still be dismissed, ignored, or taken advantage of. People may smile at you, thank you, even say they adore you, but behind those compliments can be a lack of genuine respect. Because when you constantly bend to accommodate others, you're sending a message. My needs come second, my voice can wait, my boundaries are flexible. Think about it. When you say yes to things you don't want to do, just to avoid disappointing someone, you're not being kind, you're being compliant. When you let someone speak over you in a meeting and stay silent to avoid seeming rude, you're not being humble, you're being erased. And every time you choose peace over truth, every time you swallow your discomfort so someone else can stay comfortable, you're placing a small brick in the wall between who you are and who you could be. Over time, those bricks add up. And suddenly, you're standing behind a wall so high that even you can't see your own worth anymore. There is a difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. True kindness stems from strength. It comes from knowing your own value and choosing to be generous from a place of power, not fear. Niceness, in the way many women are taught to practice it, is rooted in fear of rejection, fear of being disliked, fear of not being enough. So we become easy to be around, easy to agree with, easy to overlook. And we confuse being liked with being respected. Respect, on the other hand, is not always comfortable. It often comes when you say the thing no one else wants to say, when you stand firm in your boundaries, when you say no without explaining yourself, when you disappoint people rather than betray yourself. Respect is earned not by making others feel good, but by making it clear that you know your worth and you will not compromise it for approval. This doesn't mean you stop being kind or compassionate. It means you stop confusing passivity for virtue. It means you stop prioritizing harmony at the expense of your truth. Being respected requires clarity, confidence, and courage. It requires you to own your voice even when it shakes. It requires you to set standards and enforce them, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because people respect what you respect. If you respect your time, your energy, your values, others will start doing the same. And yes, people might not like it. Some will push back when the nice girl stops saying yes. Some will call you difficult, cold, too much. But ask yourself this: would you rather be called difficult and be free, or be called nice and feel invisible? When you draw the line, you're not pushing people away, you're defining the space where self-respect begins. And in that space, something powerful happens. People start to listen differently, engage differently, treat you differently. It's not about swinging to the other extreme and becoming hard or unapproachable. It's about finding that balance where kindness is no longer a mask for fear, where your actions come from alignment, not obligation, where your smile is genuine, not a shield, where you are not performing niceness but embodying integrity. There is nothing more magnetic than a woman who is rooted in herself, who knows when to be soft and when to be strong, who gives from overflow and not emptiness. That is the woman who gets respected not because she demands it, but because she lives it. People pleasing is self-abandonment in disguise. It often wears a mask that looks like kindness, helpfulness, and loyalty. On the surface, it seems like generosity, always saying yes, always being available, always doing what others expect. But beneath that surface is a subtle, painful betrayal of the self. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile when you want to cry, every time you go along just to keep the peace, you're slowly turning your back on your own needs, desires, and truth. It may not feel like abandonment at first. It may feel like love. It may feel like being a good person. It may even win you praise. But eventually it becomes a heavy burden, a constant performance where your own voice gets quieter and quieter until one day you can't hear it at all. People pleasing often begins in childhood. Maybe you learned that love was conditional, that when you were quiet, helpful, agreeable, you got approval, that when you had needs, opinions, or emotions that didn't align with what others wanted, you were ignored, criticized, or rejected, so you learned to adapt. You became who others needed you to be. You learned to anticipate their needs before they said a word. You made yourself small so others could be comfortable. And you called it love, you called it kindness, but what you were really doing was disappearing. This pattern follows you into adulthood. In friendships, relationships, the workplace, you're the one who never wants to let anyone down. You pick up the slack. You say yes to extra work. You offer support even when your tank is empty. You try to keep everyone happy, to avoid conflict at all costs. But here's the painful truth. In trying to be everything to everyone, you become nothing to yourself. You lose touch with what you actually want. You forget how to say no. You feel anxiety when someone's even slightly disappointed with you. And still, no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. Because people pleasing isn't about being kind, it's about being afraid. Afraid of being disliked, abandoned, judged. Afraid of being seen as selfish, rude, or unlovable. So you trade authenticity for acceptance. You trade boundaries for belonging. You trade your truth for temporary peace. And in doing so, you send a message to yourself over and over again. My needs don't matter, my voice doesn't count, who I am isn't worthy unless I'm useful to others. That is the heartbreak of self-abandonment. It feels like survival, but it's slowly eroding your identity from the inside out. And the worst part? People will applaud you for it. They'll call you so nice, so dependable, the one we can always count on. You'll be celebrated for how much you give, even as you're quietly drowning. You'll wear the praise like armor, but inside, you'll feel the ache of not being seen, not for who you truly are, but for what you do for everyone else. And no matter how much you give, you'll notice that the people who take the most are rarely the ones who offer the same care in return. Because people pleasers attract takers. And takers don't respect boundaries, they exploit the absence of them. Healing this pattern doesn't mean becoming selfish or uncaring. It means learning to love yourself enough to stop abandoning your own heart just to be accepted. It means recognizing that your worth isn't tied to how much you do for others. That love isn't something you have to earn by sacrificing yourself. That real connection can only exist where there is honesty, equality, and mutual respect. It means practicing the discomfort of saying no, of letting people be disappointed, of risking disapproval, and understanding that the people who truly love you won't leave when you show them who you really are. They'll thank you for finally being real. Reclaiming yourself after years of people pleasing is hard. It feels unnatural. It brings up guilt, fear, and resistance. But with every act of self-honoring, with every boundary you set, with every truth you speak, you rebuild the relationship with the most important person in your life, you. And that is where your true power begins. Not in being liked by everyone, but in being true to yourself no matter who approves. Because the cost of abandoning yourself is far too high, and the peace that comes from choosing yourself is worth everything. Silence to keep peace often leads to inner chaos. On the outside, it may look like everything is fine. You smile, nod, agree, and go along with what's expected. You convince yourself that it's not a big deal, that staying quiet is the mature thing to do, that you're avoiding unnecessary conflict. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, but deep down, you know you're just keeping the noise on the outside from getting louder, while allowing the storm inside you to grow. Every time you hold back what you really feel, every time you swallow your thoughts to avoid upsetting someone else, you make a silent promise. I will carry this so no one else has to. And over time, that weight becomes unbearable. It starts small. You let a rude comment slide because you don't want to seem sensitive. You agree to plans you don't want to attend because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't speak up in that meeting because you don't want to rock the boat. These decisions feel harmless, even noble, but they add up. With each moment of silence, a little piece of your truth is buried, and what gets buried doesn't disappear, it festers. That unspoken frustration becomes resentment. That swallowed sadness becomes numbness. That ignored truth turns into disconnection, not just from others, but from yourself. You begin to feel restless in your own skin. You start questioning your own feelings. You wonder if you're overreacting, if maybe it really isn't worth bringing up, if peace is more valuable than honesty. But the peace you're keeping is not peace at all. It's just the absence of noise. Real peace includes truth. It includes boundaries, disagreement, even confrontation. What you're really doing by staying silent is avoiding discomfort. But comfort is not the same as safety. And if your silence protects others at the cost of betraying yourself, it's not peace, it's self-abandonment. There's a deep fear tied to speaking your truth. What if they get angry? What if they leave? What if they see you differently? What if your words create tension or confrontation? And yes, those are real possibilities. Speaking up risks disruption. But so does silence, only the disruption turns inward. The fear of external chaos becomes internal suffering. You might keep the relationship, but you lose your authenticity. You might avoid the argument, but you start living with quiet resentment. You might maintain the illusion of harmony, but inside you feel lonely and unheard. And when this pattern repeats, it becomes your default. You stop trusting your voice. You downplay your needs. You tell yourself, it's not worth it. I'll get over it. It doesn't matter. But it does matter. Every time you silence yourself to maintain peace, you're choosing someone else's comfort over your own truth. You're telling yourself that your feelings are too much, your needs are inconvenient, your presence must be filtered. And after a while, you stop showing up as yourself altogether. You become a version of you that fits the room, not the real you who needs to breathe. This inner chaos leaks out in other ways. It shows up in anxiety, in burnout, in a sense of emptiness that no one else seems to notice. It shows up in emotional outbursts that feel disproportionate because they're not about the present moment, they're about all the moments you stayed silent. You start to feel disconnected from your own life, like you're watching yourself from the outside, wondering when you stopped being honest, wondering when you became so small. Reclaiming your voice is not about creating conflict for the sake of it. It's about honoring your experience, standing in your truth, and choosing to live aligned instead of agreeable. It means having the difficult conversations, even if they're uncomfortable. It means saying no, even when it might disappoint. It means telling someone they hurt you, even if they didn't mean to. Because your truth is valid, even if it disrupts someone else's version of peace. And real relationships, real connections, real growth, they're built on truth, not silence. The courage to speak your truth doesn't always come easy. It requires practice, vulnerability, and a willingness to be misunderstood. But the alternative, living in quiet chaos, is a far greater cost. Peace that demands your silence is not peace at all. It's a performance, and eventually every performance ends. What remains is the question: will you keep betraying your voice for the sake of harmony, or will you choose the discomfort of truth and finally set yourself free from the noise within? If you teach others how to treat you by what you tolerate, it's not always about what you say, but what you allow, what you excuse, what you overlook. Every time you let someone cross a boundary without consequence, every time you accept disrespect in the name of keeping things easy, every time you minimize your own hurt just to avoid uncomfortable conversations, you're sending a message: this is okay, I'll accept this, I don't require better. And people learn quickly. They learn how much of you they can take, how little they need to give, how far they can push without being pushed back. What you tolerate becomes the silent standard you set, not only for others, but for yourself. At first, you might not even realize it's happening. You make excuses. You tell yourself they didn't mean it that way, that it's just a phase, that they're having a hard time. You try to be understanding, compassionate, forgiving. But in doing so, you sometimes forget to be those same things to yourself. There's a fine line between empathy and self-neglect, between patience and passivity. The more you tolerate what makes you uncomfortable, disrespected, or small, the more you normalize it. And soon, what once felt unacceptable becomes your new reality. It's not just in relationships. This shows up everywhere: in friendships where your time and energy are taken for granted, in workplaces where your contributions are overlooked, in families where your voice is drowned out. The longer you tolerate being treated as less than, the harder it becomes to remember you deserve more. It chips away at your self-worth slowly, subtly, not all at once, not with a loud crash, but with quiet compromises, one unspoken hurt at a time. People take their cues from you. They observe how you react to being interrupted, to being dismissed, to being taken advantage of. If you always smile through it, if you never speak up, if you keep showing up the same way no matter how you're treated, then they assume it's acceptable. Not because they're always malicious, but because human behavior adjusts to what is allowed. And if no lines are drawn, people stop looking for them. It's not about being harsh, cold, or unforgiving. It's about being clear. Clear in your boundaries, clear in your expectations, clear in your self-respect. When you hold your ground and say, "This doesn't work for me," you're not creating conflict, you're creating clarity. And clarity is kindness, both to yourself and to others. It gives people a chance to rise, to shift, to meet you at the level where mutual respect exists. But if you keep moving the line to accommodate others, don't be surprised when they stop noticing there was a line at all. This also means you need to take responsibility for your role in the patterns that hurt you. That's a hard truth. It's easier to blame others for how they treat us than to admit we've allowed it. But the moment you recognize your power in the dynamic, everything changes. You realize that you can stop tolerating. You can start demanding, not loudly or rudely, but with unwavering self-respect. You can leave the table where love is conditional, where effort is one-sided, where your presence is not truly valued. Teaching others how to treat you starts with how you treat yourself. If you constantly put yourself last, if you ignore your own needs, if you criticize yourself internally and dismiss your own emotions, then you're laying the groundwork for others to do the same. But when you speak to yourself with kindness, when you protect your energy, when you honor your own boundaries, you begin to embody the standard. You stop waiting for people to give you the respect you haven't yet given yourself. There's a shift that happens when you stop tolerating what drains or disrespects you. It doesn't always mean people will change, but you do. You stop explaining your worth. You stop begging for effort. You stop proving your value. You simply walk in your truth, and those who can meet you there will, and those who can't will fall away. It's not about punishment. It's about alignment. Your life starts to reflect the energy you stand in, not the energy you silently endure. Tolerance is often seen as a virtue, and in many ways it is. But there's a difference between tolerance that stems from strength and tolerance that comes from fear. The first expands your world, the second erodes your soul. Pay attention to what you continue to accept just to avoid discomfort. Because in the end, you are setting the tone, and when you finally choose to raise the standard not with anger, but with clarity, you stop living as a reflection of others' expectations and start living as the expression of your own worth.